The massive alien scout ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Its blue-skinned crew members had done this countless times before: find a new species, make contact, and welcome them to the galactic community. Usually, they found primitive civilizations still fighting over resources and land. Captain Green of the galactic scout ship, Star Seeker, expected nothing different from this system. He was wrong. "Sir, you need to see this," said his sensor officer, pointing at the screen. The third planet was surrounded by satellites, space stations, and ships that seemed to move with perfect coordination. There was no space debris, no signs of conflict, and no weapon systems actively tracking their arrival. "That's unusual," Green muttered. "Most species would have their weapons locked onto an unknown ship instantly. But these humans, as their broadcasts named them, simply sent a calm greeting message asking them to wait at the edge of their solar system. The response team that came to meet them was even more surprising. A single ship, smaller than the Star Seeker, approached at a peaceful speed. It carried minimal weapons, just enough for self-defense. Its hull was painted white and blue, with EDF Peace Key Per written in large letters. Inside the Star Seeker's meeting room, Captain Dale Roberts of the Earth Defense Force sat calmly across from Captain Green. Roberts was a tall man with graying hair and calm blue eyes. He didn't show any fear or excitement, just peaceful interest. "Welcome to Earth space," Roberts said with a smile. "We've been expecting contact from the galactic community for some time now." Green's antenna twitched in confusion. "You seem very prepared for this meeting, Captain Roberts." "We believe in being prepared for everything," Roberts replied, his smile never wavering. "Would you like to send your research teams to begin the standard cultural exchange?" Green agreed, but something bothered him. His ship's deep scans had detected massive underground structures across Earth, huge complexes that seemed to serve no clear purpose. When he asked about them, Roberts simply said they were old military installations that were no longer needed. The research teams reported back with puzzling findings. Humans had a history filled with warfare, yet they had somehow achieved perfect global peace. Their military still existed, but it seemed to focus more on peaceful missions, helping with natural disasters, space exploration, and scientific research. "Captain," one researcher reported privately to Green, "their technology is far more advanced than they're showing us. And those underground structures, they're active. Something down there is alive." Green watched through the ship's windows as Earth rotated peacefully below. His species had visited thousands of worlds, but something about Earth was different. Most species either showed off their military power or scrambled to hide it. Humans did neither. They were completely open about having military forces, but seemed genuinely uninterested in using them. During the farewell dinner, Roberts made a comment that would keep Green awake for many nights after. "You know," the human captain said casually, "we've learned that true peace isn't about not having weapons. It's about being powerful enough that you don't need to use them." As the Star Seeker prepared to leave Earth to report back to the Galactic Council, Green couldn't shake the feeling that they had just met something unique in the galaxy, a species so powerful they could afford to be genuinely peaceful. "Send a message to the Council," he told his communications officer. "Tell them we found something unprecedented, a Type 2 civilization that has mastered the greatest power of all, the power to choose peace when they could easily choose war." The Star Seeker jumped into faster-than-light speed, leaving Earth behind. But in the underground facilities across the planet, something stirred slightly in its ancient sleep, then settled back into its dreamless slumber. The war gods would rest a while longer, while humanity enjoyed the peace they had earned through thousands of years of learning the true meaning of power. 2 weeks after first contact, the alien research team was confused. Dr. Stone, the lead researcher from the Galactic Council, stared at his holographic displays with his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in disbelief. Every scan of Earth's historical sites told the same story: a history of endless war followed by sudden, complete peace. "This makes no sense," he muttered, his gray scales shifting color with frustration. No species just stops fighting overnight. Dr. Emma Stone, no relation to the alien Dr. Stone, walked into the research center, carrying old paper books in her arms. She was Earth's head historian, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a serious face. Having trouble understanding our history? She asked with a small smile. The alien researcher turned to her. Your species fought 3 world wars. You had enough weapons to destroy your planet 12 times over. Then suddenly, 50 years ago, all major conflicts just stopped. How? Emma placed the books on a table. Did you ever wonder why we keep these paper records when we have perfect digital storage? She opened one of the books, showing pictures of massive battles. Because some things shouldn't be forgotten. We didn't choose peace, Dr. Stone. We found something that made war obsolete. In another part of the facility, 2 junior alien researchers made an interesting discovery. They were scanning old military bases when their equipment picked up strange energy readings. The readings matched patterns they'd seen in those huge underground structures. But these were much older. Look at this, said the first researcher, pointing at his screen. These energy patterns, they're the same as the ones in those sleeping chambers underground. But these are from an old battlefield from their last World War. The second researcher zoomed in on the data. It's like they were testing something big. Back in the main research center, Emma showed Dr. Stone more records. Here, she said, pointing to a series of photographs. This was the turning point. The pictures showed massive machines, half biological and half mechanical, being lowered into underground chambers. What are they? Dr. Stone asked, his scales now a pale blue color of curiosity. Insurance, Emma replied simply. The best kind. The kind that lets you sleep peacefully at night. Dr. Stone's assistant rushed into the room, holding a datapad. Sir, we found something in their military records. They didn't disband their armies. They evolved them. Their current military force is tiny compared to their past, but it's more efficient than anything we've ever seen. Emma nodded. We learned that bigger isn't always better. Quality over quantity. Our current forces are small, but perfect for what we need. Helping with disasters, protecting trade routes, exploring space. The old ways. She paused, looking at a picture of the massive underground chambers. They're just back up now. Dr. Stone finally understood something that had been bothering him. Your people aren't afraid of war, he said slowly. You're just beyond it. Fear is for those who don't have control, Emma replied. We control our destiny now. Those underground chambers you're so curious about, they're not weapons. They're reminders. Reminders that we have options if we ever need them. As the day ended, Dr. Stone made his final report to the Galactic Council. The humans haven't given up their ability to fight, he wrote. They've mastered it so completely that they no longer need to prove it. But there's something else here, something sleeping in their underground chambers, something they created when they were still learning the true cost of war. In the deep underground facility beneath them, ancient systems continued their endless task, keeping their precious cargo in perfect suspended animation. The war gods slept on, their dreams filled with battles long past, while humanity enjoyed the peace their very existence guaranteed. Commander James Wright stood in the elevator as it descended deep beneath the Earth's surface. Next to him, 3 alien scientists fidgeted nervously. After weeks of asking, the Galactic Council had finally gotten permission to see one of the underground facilities. Nobody expected what they were about to find. Remember, Wright said in a calm voice, no scanning equipment, no recordings. You can observe with your own eyes only. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and gray hair, wearing a simple black uniform with no rank markings. The elevator stopped at level 50, nearly a mile underground. The doors opened to reveal a massive chamber that seemed to stretch forever. The alien scientists gasped. In front of them, in rows that extended into the darkness, were enormous pods made of gleaming metal and strange, living tissue. What? What are they? Asked the lead scientist, his tentacles waving in excitement. Wright walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. During our last World War, we realized something. Weapons weren't the answer. We needed something more, something that could think, adapt, and most importantly, remember. He stopped at the first pod. Inside, floating in clear liquid, was something that looked almost human, but was clearly much more. Its body was a perfect blend of flesh and machine, nearly 30 feet tall. Its eyes were closed, as if in peaceful sleep. "This is General Marcus," Wright said softly. "He led armies in our last war. When victory was finally achieved, he volunteered to become something more, something that would ensure we'd never need another war." The aliens moved closer, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. The pod hummed softly with power. Inside, they could see faint lights pulsing like heartbeats through the being's metallic skin. "How many?" one scientist whispered. "Thousands," Wright replied. "Each one contains the consciousness of our greatest warriors. Generals, admirals, master strategists, all preserved in bodies that could fight entire armies. But more importantly, bodies that could think and reason." He turned to face the aliens. "You see, we didn't want simple weapons. We wanted guardians, beings who understood not just how to fight wars, but why to avoid them. Each war god carries centuries of combat experience, but also the wisdom that comes with it." Another scientist stepped forward. "But why keep them sleeping?" Wright smiled. "Because they don't need to be awake. Their very existence is enough. Every nation on Earth knows they're here. Every child grows up knowing that if we're ever truly threatened, the war gods will wake. It's hard to start a fight when you know such power exists." The third scientist touched the pod gently. "These beings, they're not just weapons, are they? They're your history, your memory." "Exactly," Wright nodded. "They remember every war we ever fought, every lesson we ever learned. They're our reminder of what we used to be and why we chose a different path." As they walked back to the elevator, one of the aliens asked, "Has any war god ever been awakened?" Wright's face grew serious. "Once, 10 years after they were created, a nation thought the war gods were just for show. They launched a surprise attack against their neighbors. We woke just one war god, General Marcus here. The war ended in 6 hours, with 0 casualties. The attacking army simply stopped. When you face something that can outthink your entire military leadership and has the power to back it up, fighting becomes pointless." The elevator began its long climb back to the surface. In the vast chamber below, the war gods continued their endless sleep, their dreams filled with battles long past and wisdom hard-earned. They were humanity's ultimate achievement, beings that understood war so perfectly that they made it obsolete. The Blue Star Empire didn't believe the rumors. Stories about Earth's sleeping warriors had spread across the galaxy, making some alien species nervous. The Empire's leaders decided to test humanity's real strength without their war gods. Colonel Mark Thompson was having breakfast when the attack alarms went off at the Mars colony. He calmly finished his coffee before walking to the command center. The colony, home to 50,000 people, was humanity's largest off-world settlement. "Report," he said, entering the control room. The large screen showed 5 alien warships approaching Mars. "Blue Star Empire ships, sir," his second-in-command replied. "They're claiming this is just a training exercise gone wrong, but they're in attack formation." Thompson nodded. "Interesting excuse. How many colonists have we evacuated?" "None, sir. The civilian defense teams say there's no need." The alien ships drew closer. Their sensors showed only 2 small defense platforms protecting the Mars colony. No major weapons, no massive defense fleet. It seemed too easy. The lead alien ship fired a warning shot, deliberately missing the colony by a few miles. They expected panic, confusion, perhaps a desperate call for help to Earth. Instead, they got silence. Then something strange happened. Their scanners showed hundreds of small objects rising from the Martian surface. The objects were barely bigger than human fighters, but they moved in perfect formation. "This is Colonel Thompson of the Mars Defense Force," a calm voice transmitted to the alien ships. "Your ships have entered restricted space. Please withdraw." The alien commander laughed. Their 5 warships were each bigger than Earth's largest space vessel. Each one carried enough firepower to level a city. These tiny human ships couldn't possibly be a threat. They were wrong. The small human vessels split into groups. They didn't attack. They simply moved into positions that the alien ships couldn't possibly watch all at once. Every time the alien ships turned to face one group, 3 others would slip into their blind spots. "Fascinating tactics," one alien officer said, watching the dance of ships. "It's like they're not even worried about our weapons." Then they discovered why. One alien ship fired at the human vessels. The shot passed right through them. They were holograms. The real attack came from the defense platforms, which weren't simple satellite weapons at all. They were compact, automated battle stations packed with technology the aliens had never seen before. In 30 seconds, all 5 alien ships lost power. They weren't destroyed. Their engines, weapons, and shields simply stopped working. The human vessels, now revealed to be mostly sophisticated drones controlled by a handful of pilots, surrounded them completely. "This is your final warning," Thompson's voice came again, still perfectly calm. "The next test of our defenses will be considered an act of war. We would hate to wake our sleeping friends for something so small." The alien ships, their power restored just enough for basic functions, quickly retreated. When they returned to their empire, their leaders received a message from Earth. It was just 2 sentences. "The war gods are for real threats. For everything else, our regular forces are more than enough." Back on Mars, Thompson filed his report. Total casualties, 0. Damage to colony infrastructure, 0. Time from first alert to resolution, 17 minutes. Another textbook defense operation. "Sir," his second-in-command asked, "do you think they'll try again?" Thompson smiled, looking at the screen showing the retreating alien ships. "No, they just learned what everyone else knows. Humanity doesn't need ancient superweapons to defend itself. We keep the war gods sleeping not because we're weak, but because anything less than a galaxy-ending threat isn't worth waking them for." In the command center's corner, a small screen showed the status of Earth's underground facilities. The war gods slept peacefully, undisturbed by the small conflict. Their power wasn't needed today. Humanity's regular forces had proven once again why Earth was never going to be an easy target. Dr. Anna Carter walked quickly through the underground facilities halls. Red warning lights flashed silently on the walls. After centuries of peace, someone had finally done the unthinkable. They had forced humanity to consider waking the war gods. The Shadow Fleet, as the galaxy called them, had appeared from unknown space. They weren't interested in tests or small battles. 50,000 ships had jumped into the solar system, their weapons already charging. They'd destroyed Neptune's research stations in seconds. "Status report," Anna called out as she entered the awakening chamber. The room was filled with screens showing Earth's defenses preparing for war. Uranus had fallen. Jupiter's moons were under attack. "The Shadow Fleet will reach Mars in 6 hours, her assistant reported. "Earth's combined fleet is moving to defend," but he paused, looking worried. "They have technology we've never seen before. Our usual tactics aren't working." Anna placed her hand on the main control panel. As Earth's chief war god specialist, she was one of the few humans who could start the awakening process. The panel scanned her DNA, her brainwaves, and even her memories to confirm her identity. "Security footage from Neptune," someone called out. The main screen showed the last transmission from the research stations. The Shadow Fleet's weapons had simply ignored the human shields, passing through them like they didn't exist. "They found a way to bypass our defensive technology," Anna said quietly. That's why they attacked now. They think they found our weakness. She smiled slightly. They don't understand that our technology was never our real strength. The facility shook as Anna began the awakening sequence. In similar facilities around the world, other specialists were doing the same thing. Deep beneath the earth, ancient machines hummed to life. "Ma'am," her assistant said, "are we really going to wake them? The war gods haven't been needed for so long." Anna nodded, watching as the status bars on her screen began to fill. The war gods aren't just weapons, Jack. They're the combined knowledge of humanity's entire military history, stored in bodies that can use that knowledge perfectly. The Shadow Fleet thinks they can beat our technology. Let's see how they handle fighting every brilliant general and warrior in human history at once. Warning messages flashed across the screens. The Shadow Fleet had reached Saturn. Earth's defense fleet was engaging them near Jupiter's moons, buying time. The battles were fierce, but the humans were badly outnumbered. "Begin consciousness transfer," Anna commanded. In the massive chamber beyond the control room, the first pod began to glow. Inside, General Thomas Reed, the hero of humanity's last war, began to stir from his long sleep. Full neural connection established, the computer announced. Higher brain functions online. Combat systems activating. Warning. Subject is accessing current military status. Through the control room's window, Anna watched as the giant figure in the pod opened its eyes for the first time in centuries. The war god's gaze focused immediately on the battle displays, showing the Shadow Fleet's advance. "Dr. Carter," a deep voice rumbled through the speakers. It was calm, thoughtful, and carried the weight of centuries of warfare in every word. "I see humanity needs us again." "Yes, General Reed," Anna replied. "We've kept peace for a long time, but now we face an enemy that thinks they can simply walk over us." The war god's eyes narrowed as it processed centuries of technological and tactical advances in seconds. "They believe our technology is our strength," Reed said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. "Let us show them why humanity's real power was never about our weapons, but about how we use them." Around the world, more pods began to glow. The war gods were waking up, and the galaxy was about to learn why humanity had worked so hard to find peaceful solutions. Because when peace failed, what came next was something the galaxy had never seen before. The Shadow Fleet's commander watched with satisfaction as his ships approached Mars. The human defense fleet was falling back, their advanced technology finally meeting something it couldn't handle. Victory seemed certain. Then his sensors detected something leaving Earth's atmosphere. Just 3 objects, each about 30 feet tall. The size of the objects made him laugh. What could 3 small things do against his 50,000 ships? "Sir," his second-in-command called out, "we're getting strange readings from those objects. They're changing." The 3 figures grew as they flew through space, their bodies shifting and expanding. By the time they reached Mars orbit, each war god was the size of a battleship. Their bodies shimmered with energy, a perfect blend of flesh and machine that the galaxy had never seen before. General Reed led the 3 war gods. His voice boomed across all communication channels, speaking directly into the minds of every Shadow Fleet crew member. "Your weapons bypass shields. Impressive. But tell me, can they bypass experience?" The Shadow Fleet launched their full attack. Millions of energy beams fired at the 3 figures. But the war gods moved with impossible grace, every motion calculated from countless battles across human history. They didn't dodge the attacks. They simply weren't where the attacks were aimed, moving with perfect prediction. Fascinating technology. Reed's voice came again, calm as ever, similar to what the Romans faced when they met the Carthaginian navy. The solution now is the same as it was then: adapt and overcome. The war gods' bodies shifted again, their surface now covered in materials that absorbed the Shadow Fleet's weapons completely. Centuries of human warfare had taught them that every weapon had a counter, every tactic had a weakness. "Impossible," the Shadow Fleet commander shouted. How did they adapt so quickly? We carry the knowledge of every war humanity has ever fought, Reed replied as the war gods began their counterattack. Every battle, every strategy, every victory and defeat, we remember them all. And we know exactly why they happened. The war gods moved through the Shadow Fleet like dancers. They didn't destroy ships, they disabled them with precise strikes, their hands moving with surgical accuracy. Each touch shut down vital systems, each movement protected human ships and colonies. On Mars, Colonel Thompson watched in awe as the three war gods systematically took apart the greatest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. They're not just fighting, he realized. They're teaching. He was right. The war gods were showing the Shadow Fleet why humanity had chosen peace, not because they couldn't fight, but because they had mastered warfare so completely that it had become an art form. Within 1 hour, half of the Shadow Fleet was disabled. Not destroyed, just powerless, floating in space. The war gods had given them life support and basic communications, nothing more. Your fleet carried enough firepower to destroy a solar system, Reed transmitted to the Shadow Fleet commander. Yet you've not managed to land a single effective hit. Do you understand now? Humanity didn't give up war because we were weak. We gave it up because we had perfected it. The remaining Shadow Fleet ships began to retreat. They had come expecting to find a civilization that had grown soft in peace. Instead, they found the very reason that peace was possible. As the disabled ships were towed away by human rescue vessels, the war gods began to shrink back to their original size. Their job was done. Earth was safe. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Was this necessary? Thompson asked Reed as the war god prepared to return to his sleep. Reed's massive face showed a gentle smile. Sometimes the best way to teach peace is to show why war is pointless. They came looking for a fight. We gave them a lesson instead. The three war gods returned to Earth, their mission complete. They had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or technology. It was understanding war so perfectly that they could choose peace. Captain Robert Mills of the Galactic Council stood before the emergency session, his report ready. Representatives from 1,000 alien species waited to hear about the Shadow Fleet's defeat. The massive council chamber was completely silent. Mills began. Just 3 war gods were awakened. They defeated 50,000 ships without causing a single death. But that's not the most important part of my report. He pressed a button, showing holographic images of the battle. The war gods moved through space like ancient warriors performing a deadly dance. Look at how they fought, he continued. They didn't just win. They taught. Every move was a lesson. Every action showed why violence against humanity is pointless. The council chamber erupted in whispers. The Shadow Fleet had been the galaxy's greatest military power. Their defeat changed everything. In the front row, Dr. Stone watched with his 4 eyes wide. They could have destroyed those ships, he said. Why didn't they? Mills nodded. That's what makes humans different. Their war gods aren't just weapons. They're teachers. They carry every lesson humanity ever learned about war. And the biggest lesson was this. True victory isn't about destruction. The hologram changed to show the rescue operation after the battle. Human ships helping disabled Shadow Fleet vessels, providing medical aid to injured alien crews. Even the war gods had helped, using their massive hands to gently guide damaged ships to safety. The Shadow Fleet's leaders have surrendered, Mills announced. But they didn't surrender because they were defeated. They surrendered because they finally understood. Humanity's peace isn't about weakness, it's about mastery. Dr. Emma Stone, who had been invited to the council session, stood up to speak. For centuries, you've wondered why we keep the war gods sleeping. Now you know. They're not our last resort. They're our reminder. They remember every war we fought, every life lost, every lesson learned. They help us remember why we chose a different path. The council voted unanimously to establish new laws. Any attack on human settlements would be considered an attack on galactic peace itself, not because humans needed protection, but because they had shown a better way. 1 month later, Mills wrote the final entry in the official record of the Shadow Fleet incident. His words would be studied by future generations across the galaxy. Humanity never lost its ability to fight. They simply gained something greater, the wisdom to know when not to. Their war gods sleep not because they're feared, but because they represent a truth humanity learned long ago. True power isn't about having the strongest weapons. It's about having the wisdom to keep them sleeping. The galaxy feared humanity's sleeping gods until we understood why they sleep. They rest because humanity has grown beyond the need for war. They dream of ancient battles so we don't have to fight new ones. And they wake only to remind us why peace is always the better choice. In the end, humanity's greatest achievement wasn't creating the war gods. It was creating a peace so strong that gods of war themselves chose to sleep through it. Deep beneath Earth's surface, the war gods returned to their slumber. In their dreams, they remembered not just the battles they had won, but the peace they had helped build. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity's guardians could rest once more, knowing their very existence helped keep the peace they had fought so hard to create.